Building the greenhouse wasn't just about growing plants. It was about keeping Sarah's dream alive. My wife had always wanted a self-sustaining garden, a place where neighbors could share food, kids could learn about nature, and life could flourish. After losing her to cancer, I put everything I had into making that dream a reality. For 6 months, I worked tirelessly. I secured all the necessary permits, hired a certified contractor, and ensured the greenhouse met every regulation. It stood 12 feet tall with reinforced glass panels, a sturdy steel frame, and an advanced irrigation system. The neighbors loved it. Mrs. Chen next door even asked if she could grow some of her Chinese vegetables in it during the winter. But not everyone was happy. Karen Thompson, the HOA president, had been watching since the first day of construction, her eyes narrowing every time she passed by in her oversized SUV. She never said anything, just wrote furiously in her little notebook. Then the letters started coming. 3 days after the greenhouse was completed, I received my first violation notice, unapproved architectural modification. I sent back copies of all my permits and city approvals, confident it was a misunderstanding. A second letter arrived the next day, then a third. Then the fine started, $100 per day for noncompliance. When I requested an appeal, Karen scheduled it for a Tuesday at 2 p.m., knowing full well I worked during the day. They weren't interested in reason. Still, I held my ground. Until the night they destroyed everything. The crash woke me at 3 a.m. I stumbled outside in my pajamas, heart pounding, just in time to see a contractor's truck pulling away. Where my greenhouse had stood just hours before was now a pile of shattered glass and twisted metal. The irrigation system was torn apart, and bags of soil were dumped across the lawn. The seed collection Sarah and I had gathered from our travels, rare tomatoes from Italy, Thai chili peppers, heirloom strawberries, scattered like dust in the wind. And there stood Karen, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. "You should have followed the rules," she said, waving a document in front of me. Emergency removal order, citing safety concerns. Behind her, I could see other HOA board members peering through their windows, watching like vultures. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just started taking pictures. As I sifted through the wreckage, my hands shaking with rage, something caught my eye. A small notebook, half buried in the dirt. Karen's notebook. Flipping through the pages, I found detailed notes. My name. My property. Dates and times of HOA meetings I hadn't even known about. And then I saw it. A demolition order with her signature. Dated 3 weeks before the so-called emergency vote to remove my greenhouse. They had planned this from the start. Karen had made one crucial mistake. She didn't know who she was dealing with. And she certainly didn't know about the security cameras I had installed after the first violation letter. I walked inside, notebook in hand, already forming a plan. If Karen wanted to play hardball, she was about to learn that destroying my greenhouse was the biggest mistake the HOA would ever make. But first, I needed to make a few phone calls. Starting with my old friend Tom, a retired real estate lawyer with a particular hatred for homeowners associations. Tom didn't even hesitate after I told him what happened. They destroyed your property without proper legal grounds? That's not just an HOA overreach. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. We met the next morning over coffee, spreading out all the documents I had collected. The violation letters, the permits, the photos of the destruction, and most importantly, Karen's notebook. Tom flipped through the pages, shaking his head. This is bad for them. Real bad. They issued an emergency order based on fabricated safety concerns. That's fraud. We need to file an injunction immediately to stop any further action against your property. By noon, Tom had drafted a legal complaint. I delivered it personally to the HOA office, where Karen sat behind a polished desk, sipping her overpriced latte. She barely glanced at the papers before smirking. A lawsuit? How predictable. Do you really think you can win? The HOA has deep pockets. I leaned in. I don't need to win in court, Karen. I just need to make enough noise that the board members realize you're more of a liability than an asset. For the first time, her smile faltered. The next move wasn't mine. It was the community's. Word spread fast. Within a week, my neighbors started voicing their anger. Mrs. Chen was furious about the greenhouse's destruction, telling anyone who would listen how much Karen had overstepped. The local newspaper picked up the story, and soon, HOA members were receiving calls from homeowners demanding answers. We didn't vote on any emergency demolition, one board member admitted in a recorded phone call that made its way onto social media. Karen tried damage control, sending out a carefully worded statement claiming miscommunication and misunderstandings. But it was too late. The tide was turning, and I wasn't done yet. Tom filed an injunction, and within days, a judge ruled in our favor, halting all further HOA actions against me and freezing their ability to collect fines. The board was now under scrutiny, and homeowners started pushing for a full audit of HOA finances. Karen doubled down, hosting an emergency meeting to save face, but fewer than half the members showed up. The community was waking up. As I walked through my ruined garden, I smiled for the first time in weeks. This wasn't just about a greenhouse anymore. This was about taking back our neighborhood. And I wasn't stopping until Karen was gone. Karen was losing control. With the injunction in place and homeowners demanding answers, the HOA board was fractured. Some of its members, once loyal to Karen, started distancing themselves, worried about their own legal liability. A few even contacted Tom, quietly asking for legal advice. Karen, however, refused to back down. She sent a new letter to all HOA members, painting herself as the victim. "The integrity of our neighborhood is under attack," she wrote. "Certain individuals want to dismantle the HOA, which would lead to property values plummeting and chaos in our community. Stand with me to protect what we've built." But this time, people weren't buying it. Raymond, my neighbor from down the street, knocked on my door the morning after the letter went out. "People are fed up," he said, waving the letter. "No one wants to deal with Karen's nonsense anymore. If we push for a vote, we can have her removed." I nodded. "Let's do it." HOA bylaws allowed homeowners to call for a special vote if 30% of the community signed a petition. Within a week, we had double that. The emergency meeting was packed. For the first time, Karen didn't look smug. She looked cornered. "This is ridiculous," she scoffed. "You need someone strong to keep this neighborhood in order. Without my leadership, this place will fall apart." Tom stood up. "No, Karen. What this neighborhood needs is someone who doesn't abuse their power. Let's vote." The ballots were counted in front of everyone. When the final numbers came in, it wasn't even close. Karen had been voted out by a landslide. As she stormed out of the meeting, she turned to me, her eyes filled with venom. "You'll regret this." I smiled. I doubt it. With Karen gone, the community began to heal. The new HOA board reversed all her excessive fines, refunded homeowners who had been unfairly charged, and put in place new rules ensuring no president could ever have unchecked power again. As for my greenhouse, the neighborhood came together and helped me rebuild it, bigger and stronger than before. One Saturday morning, as I stood in the garden watering the newly planted vegetables, Mrs. Chen walked up, holding a small bag of seeds. "For Sarah's dream," she said, placing them in my hand. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. "For Sarah." As the sun rose over my restored garden, I knew one thing for sure. We had won.